Hello, everyone. Tara Williams here with the Mom Manual. I have another amazing guest for you all today. Melissa Clayton is CEO and founder of Tiny Tags. She is also a mother of three boys from age 16 to 19. Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tara. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited for you to be here. I don't think we've had someone come on and speak to motherhood who has gone through all of the stages. And I don't want to say your boys are gone, but they aren't in diapers anymore, right?
Yep.
They don't
Yep.
need that constant physical care, but I'm sure it has changed. So, Melissa today is going to talk to us about all the stages of motherhood. It's going to be a really fun conversation, how she started her company, and Tiny Tags is amazing, you guys. So we'll get a promotion at the end as well for a discount code. Melissa, tell us your story. Start from the top.
Sure. Where do I start? My goodness. So I started Tiny Tags quite a few years ago, but for many years it was the mom on the kitchen counter was doing it when the boys. I was pregnant with my second. And really I had never thought I would leave corporate America and be a stay-at-home mom. But I did, and we had moved out to California and for my husband's job. And after I had my first son, I just wanted a necklace to celebrate, this new bundle of joy, and fell into started hand stamping. And I did that for many years. And then we decided to move back east. I'm giving you kind of the short version, I think.
I
And then
love
we
it.
moved back east. And that was when I knew I wanted to do more fine jewelry. So we basically completely changed the company and went to 14 karat gold, sterling silver, gold vermeil, went to laser engraving, and really rehauled the entire company. And that's the company that people see today. It has been like my fourth child. It has what started, when I started it to where it is now. I've grown with it. It has meant more to me now than it did back then. And it has been outside of my family, probably one of the greatest gifts because it has,
Mhm.
and then we can get into that more. And I'm going to try not to cry, is that it's through the relationships I've made through with so many women that have made me pause in my daily life, filled with incredible gratitude to know when you have a child in your arms and you get to kiss a child at night,
Oh,
that you're blessed. Because we hear so many stories, and it stops you in your tracks a lot of the times.
I love that. I know it's when I think back, I have four kids. For anyone who listens regularly, they are six, almost, yeah, 9, 10, and 11. And it just goes by so fast. Like I know we have a lot of new moms or pregnant moms that listen. And when people tell you you blink, and my daughter will be 12 this year, I cannot believe it. Like it is crazy. But this jewelry, Melissa, is exclusively for women, right? Is that like, tell me more about the company and how you decided to only keep it for women.
Yeah, so we really focus on moms, and that was not only because I really felt that this company was never a means to an end for me. It was never about building it and selling it so I could lay by a pool. It
Yeah.
has been a way for me to take a lot of my own journey, my own relationship with
Mhm.
my mother, who died at 52. That's to be
Wow.
52, yeah, from alcoholism. Her journey to struggle up, to show up rather as a mother because of her journey, and really wanting to be a place that, especially in as an older mom now, and seeing so much noise that's out there around motherhood, um, as to be a place that really makes mom feel good about where she is in her journey, and to remind her and all of us that it's within, that our children need us. They don't need all the other things that were being sold.
Yeah.
um, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell them you don't even need tiny tags. What you do
Yeah.
need, though, is to take the time to make sure your heart is right, and that you've taken the time to heal your wounds from your own childhood so you don't just rinse and repeat.
Mhm.
And that children just want you, at the end of the day. So we always want to be a place that mom feels really good about herself. We don't want mom to come to us and feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, and oh, I need this
Yeah.
to be a good mom. So we're really sort of like, I like to think, that big sister that's putting her arms around you and saying, just be,
Yeah.
and just remember what really matters, because there's a lot of noise out there.
I think, you know what, Melissa, you're speaking to is really cool because you embody a true small business, right? It's made locally in the United States, really personalized, individualized. And we're in such a time where everything feels just so fast fashion. I mean, everything, right? It's the Amazon culture, it's the quick delivery, but ordering from a small business and being, somebody who kind of goes into that community, it's such a different feeling. And we get that a lot at Dreamland Baby too, where same thing, we really support those younger mothers and the pregnancy and the education pieces. And I'm just talking all about like sleep habits. But it's so rewarding. Like if anyone is listening and they're thinking, I want to start something, you just like Melissa said, like you can go one of two ways. You can either start something and say, this is for me. Like we don't want to lose money, right? Like hopefully we
Right.
break even or we're profitable, right? But I was in a spot where when I started my business, like I had been laid off from my company, from my job. So was my husband at the same time. And like we needed to make money. Like it was like I love doing this, but I also need to provide for my family. So I think there's like a few different ways you can look at the business. And then I don't want to say it's a hobby, right? But it can be more hobby focused versus more corporate focused. But either way that you do it, like being a small business is just like I've been doing my baby for 5 years. It truly has been like the greatest gift of my life. I mean, beyond my children and beyond my family, like I have a work family. I have a community of women that feel like family. It's an honor. Like it's an honor of a lifetime, truly. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get emotional now, Melissa. I love it so much. Okay, so let's jump into well, we're talking about it a little bit, but our first takeaway. So how to love the journey. And this is a journey of motherhood, yes?
Well, I would say both. And just to go back, I do feel like I'm pretty outspoken in the female entrepreneurship space because I do think, it is okay to want to make money.
Yeah.
And I think for me, once I tapped into the why with tiny tags
Mhm.
and the mission behind it, it makes running it that much easier. And I think you actually make more money because you're really tapping into something that I just think if your only goal to start a business is to make money
Yeah.
and there's not something deeper, I think it gets really hard to wake up every day where like I am the cliche that every day is never feels like work. I love what I do. I love connecting with our community. I love what our jewelry represents.
Yeah.
Um, and once you tap into that, I think as a consumer,
Yeah.
you're attached to something because we're not trying to be everything to everybody.
Right.
I'm an avid, I used to be a CPA, feels like a whole other lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm an avid reader of business books because
Mm.
I want to take what I know, this very mission focus and this incredibly beautiful product and make it bigger. And I do want to be, $100 million company one day. So just because it's mission focused and because it
Mm.
has heart doesn't mean you can't be concerned about a profit because
Yeah.
I love the fact that we employ women, except my husband who joined 8 years ago. And I love that we are creating a product that I think actually, when I get the emails and I get the reviews, we are making a product that actually means something to somebody.
Yeah.
And I always like to think it's the mom. I mean, I've done it myself when I'm like racing and I'll like literally hold my tiny tags and be like, hold up, wait a minute, like slow down. Everything you need is right here. I have my boys, I have my husband. It's okay if I'm late for this. Just
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
So, um,
And for anyone who's listening that hasn't heard of the brand, Tiny Tags, it's all gold jewelry now, right? And
It's
sterling
14
silver.
karat gold,
Right.
sterling silver, and gold vermeil,
Okay.
and 95% of our product is custom done. So we do fine personalized jewelry. And what's really special about Tiny Tags, because gosh knows there's plenty of personalized jewelry companies now, is that we do laser engraving. So
Oh,
it
cool.
really, so I have my boys' names on my skinny bar and their birth times on the back. It allows us to really personalize the product where
Yeah.
most companies do diamond drag, where and with laser engraving, the metal's never cut. So
Mm,
it's a really elegant finish, where a lot of companies do diamond drag. So a piece of metal scratches the name into the metal because it's quick and easy. So uh,
interesting.
anyway, so that's a little bit more about that. But as far as the journey, I feel like for me, the journey of motherhood and tiny tags have gone hand in hand
Mm,
because I I have enjoyed the journey of growing the business, because I want to enjoy my journey of motherhood. So for many years when my kids were little, I kept it small. I did it during nap time. I did it on weekends because I wanted to be able to have that time with my kids. And I'll be the first one to say my husband was putting food on the table. It was his job. I get that is a luxury.
Yes.
So I had the opportunity to go at my own pace.
Yeah.
And then when we moved back east is when I said to my husband, and the boys were all now in elementary school, and I said, I really think I can make a go of this. Let's reverse roles. Why
Mm.
don't you quit your job?
Yeah.
And luckily he was pretty miserable in corporate America. And
Yeah.
he's like, all right, we'll do it for 6 months and see if you can make a go of it.
Yeah.
And then he wound up joining Tiny Tags. So
That is
um,
amazing. And that sounds really bold. I mean, were you established at that point or really just like getting started?
we felt like we had legs. Meryl Streep had just worn us. That was
Oh,
insane.
okay. Okay.
We had just gotten into People magazine and their Mother's Day gift guide in print. So I really felt like we had momentum.
Right.
And I felt like we were ready to take the risk, but it was a
Yeah.
huge risk. But I mean, again, I felt like the economy at the time, I both felt like he's a CPA.
What year was it?
So it was 8 years ago. So at the time, he was a CPA, I'm a CPA. We kind of felt like, okay, worst case scenario, everyone still needs CPAs. So
Yeah. You're
even
good.
though I would say I was a bad CPA,
Yeah.
I loved the business part of accounting, not necessarily the tax and audit side. So
Okay, we need a quick pause on Meryl Streep wearing these. Give us those details.
that was good old fashioned hustle. Whenever I talk about, female entrepreneurship, I like to tell my story because I think so many, when people start a company, everything we read is the stories of like drunk elephant, sold it in 6 years for $800 million, right? That is,
Whoa.
yeah, that she was just on How I Built This. That is the exception. There are plenty of companies that you can grow without raising millions and millions of dollars, and good old fashioned hustle. And that was just good old fashioned hustle where she was speaking at a conference here in Massachusetts, and I was relentless with the organizers. And the day she was there, I pretty much hand delivered it to her handler, and then she put it on. And so that was, the run around the kitchen for sure.
I love that. Yeah, geez, drunk elephant. We'll have to get back to that one. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother podcast. Okay, so tell us more about, you're doing the business and how are you doing now? You and your husband have changed roles. So he's more with the kids, you're more on the business side. So then how are you enjoying and leaning into motherhood while you're the sole provider for a minute, right?
Yeah, well, we worked from home, so that
Yeah.
was huge, right? So
Okay.
at the time, my boys were now in elementary school. So again, being an early riser, you can get a lot done when you wake up at 5:30 in the morning and answer all your emails, get the kids off to school,
Yeah.
work. Then they come home, do their thing. They either going to sports, and my husband and I would just tag team. So it allowed for, I actually think both of us working at Tiny Tags really allowed us to make it so much easier, right? We both basically working for ourselves. So we were able to tag team so much easier than like one of us having a corporate job.
Yeah, I mean, my husband, so with my company, we launched in September of 2019. And like you, bootstrapped. I was in a little bit of a different situation, like I said, because we had no income. So it was like somebody's got to make money here. But of course we didn't. Like I didn't take a salary for 2 years. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I've always worked from home. And then I thought, okay, I'll need to get an office once we get bigger, but it was then COVID. So as I started hiring people, it was everybody was still remote, and our company is completely remote right now, which I mean it will always be. Like I don't ever want to have an office and drive somewhere because if my kids have a dentist appointment at 10 or if somebody's sick, like I love being 2 minutes from the school and I can pick them up. But my husband works at home full time. We just moved as well.
Yeah.
So we like don't have enough space in the house. He works in our bedroom. I work in one of the extra bedrooms. But it is great. It's so nice to be able to just walk over and we talk about these things, and you mentioned earlier, like it is a luxury to be able to have, at the time you could go at your own pace because your husband was, the provider, the breadwinner, whatever you want to call it. And not everybody does have that luxury. I mean, if you think about two income households just to get by, or women who are single moms. Like it's, and I don't think you or I take that for granted. And same with our current situation with me and my husband. He doesn't work with my company at all, but we both do work from home. And I know there's so many people that, well, I think some people would hate that, but a lot of people would want that. And so it's very, it's like you have this luxury or this gift, but then it's like, how do you use that? Right?
Right.
Because I've always worked from home, but there's been a lot of times that we had a nanny previously who worked till 8 o'clock. And there were days I almost didn't see my kids because I
Right.
was literally working until they went to bed. And, we would maybe pause, put them to bed, or even she would put him to bed. Now that was the beginning of my business. So there are sacrifices that need to be made at some point. I mean, did you ever feel that pressure or those times where it was like, I'm focusing more on the business or I'm focusing more on the kids? It sounds like you've been pretty balanced, which I definitely have not been.
Yeah, I felt like I did have balance. And again, a little bit, it's also like we live in sometimes I feel like a fairy tale little small town outside of Boston. And I don't know if having three boys, I mean, my kids are come home from school, grab a snack, jump on their bikes, sort of kids. So it was very easy. But I mean, like even in the summertime, we have a neighborhood pool. I hired a mother's helper to bring them down to the pool because you had to be 9, I think it was at the time, to not have a parent there. And yeah, did I feel like, oh, I should be there? So you always have mom guilt.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that never goes away. So that is, even now you always have mom guilt.
And I saw on your Instagram you were talking about was your son going to college or high school? And you were like, I've always talked about, the stages of motherhood, and now it's like the stage of letting go, right?
Yeah, no, so my oldest went off to college and
Okay.
it is yeah, it's letting go and it's just bittersweet. But then again, I think because I always say once you work at Tiny Tags, you really if you didn't feel gratitude for life, you absolutely feel it because of all the stories we've heard. And
Yes.
one of the most profound stories that always affected me, that has stayed with me, was when I first started and a friend emailed me to see if I would make a necklace for a mom that had just lost her son to cancer, and he was 5 years old and my son was 5 at the time, and his
Yeah.
name was Aiden. And Aiden and Reggie, that was the mom, have always stayed with me because when I would tuck Tyler in at night, I knew that she didn't get that gift. And when Tyler graduated high school, I immediately thought of Aiden, that Reggie didn't get that. So I don't really allow myself to wallow in, oh, he's leaving. You can only feel the gratitude that he is entering that next stage. So
Yeah.
but you
And
miss him. I mean, you do miss him, don't get me wrong. I actually think I held it in so much I almost got myself I finally broke down to one person and she's like, what's going on, you seem really tight. And then I was just like, oh, and I just bawled, and I'm gonna miss him and I still miss him. So
yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because I'm one of five. I'm the oldest, and my mom, still is and has always been my best friend, and same for my sister. Like my family's just very, very close. And she had said, all these parents are saying, "Oh, I can't wait till my kid goes to college. I'm ready." And she's like, "I don't understand that because I don't want them to leave." Well, fifth child, she was ready.
right,
She
right, right.
wanted to kick him out and he's the tough one, right?
Yep.
Gave my parents, a lot of hell in high school. And so they were like, okay, I get it now. Like we were ready to kick him out the door.
Yeah.
But so I think everyone is different with that, like letting go piece. But the second point we're going to talk about today is how to live in gratitude. And you just exemplify that through your company, and just even like looking at your personal Instagram and the company Instagram, it's clear it's such a huge piece of who you are and your life. So that is something we all want. Give us all the tips.
So the truth is, I grew up listening to Zig Ziglar. So my dad, who's also a serial entrepreneur, we used to listen to Zig Ziglar going to school, and Zig
And
Ziglar.
younger people aren't going to know who that is. Tell them
Yeah,
who that.
have you heard of him?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so he's probably one of the original, like, positive motivational. He
Mhm.
was actually very sales oriented. He was a salesman. And I truly do believe that that's just how I was raised, that I always found the good and the positive. And obviously a huge Oprah fan, and that it's a choice. It really is a choice. And I think for me personally, it is, I remember someone saying, we spend all this time exercising, eating right, and spending on the exterior and the
Mhm.
interior of our bodies, but how little time we spend on our mind
Yeah.
sometimes. and making sure that you're listening to podcasts that uplift you, that remind you of these things, that you're following people on social media. I mean, that is the thing I talk about more than anything, is be responsible for the content you consume. If you
Yep.
are following people that are showing off, I mean, I unfollowed someone, all she wanted to do was show this ridiculous house she had. And I mean, it's great you have a ridiculous house, but it's like, what else do you have? Like, and it's like, if you're waking up every day and it's just your feed is filled with everything that you don't have,
Mm,
that's just not healthy. And I'm 52 years old. I can't imagine if I was 16. I can't imagine if I was a new mom. And
yeah,
I always say this story is that when I had my first son, I opened up a Pottery Barn catalog and I picked out a tea for Tyler and I threw it up in the office, and that was his nursery. There was no baby shower, no gender reveal party. And then my heart goes out to young moms and the stress,
yeah,
and how much of it is, do we take responsibility for the stress that we're putting in our own lives?
got it.
And having the courage to say, no, I just don't want to do that, because it really should be a joyful time. Obviously there are, there's postpartum and there's real
Yeah.
medical things that happen. But if you're going crazy to throw this over the top birthday party, and that's just not who you are,
Yeah.
and you're feeling you're doing it out of pressure,
Mm.
I just want to be a place that moms can say, you know what, that's just not what I want to do.
I can be me. Yeah. I had my first daughter was born in 2012. So it was really right as Instagram was becoming a thing. So
Yep.
I remember I got married pretty young. I was 25, compared to my friends. And so I was the first one. And I had, I was like, I'm like, my bridesmaid said, okay, we need to have a bridal shower. And I was living in California at the time, and I was flying back to Boston for everything. And I was like, oh, it's not really necessary. Like, I don't have time to take off from work. And they're like, no, you need a bridal shower. Like, that is a thing you need to do. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess. And I'm so glad I did, because we still have all the pots and the pans and like, I
Right.
still use, what are we, 13, 14 years later, like, still use the dishes
Yeah.
which are all cracked now and I need to replace. But I'm glad I did. However, it was not the fanfare that it is today, right? And the pressure, like you talk about. And now raising children, I have two girls and two boys. My girls are the older two, but just seeing the social media, it's like I feel sad for them. Like, they don't exist in a world that you're anonymous, and every single thing you do is tracked forever. You cannot make a mistake anymore. Like, we used to go and party in the woods. Like,
Right.
I don't, I mean, maybe it happens, I don't know, but I don't think so, right? Like, that's just not, like, because somebody takes a picture and then you're in trouble, or the cops know where you are, or I don't know, whatever. But
Yep.
I just think about all the things that, like, the Facebook things we made in college, and I think they're gone now, but I don't know. Like, it's just everything seems under a microscope, both to the actions you take and then that level of being perfect. And
Yep.
then you add in that there's filters. You're like, hold on, why does everybody on Instagram look so beautiful and symmetric and perfect and thin and tan? And it's like, that's a filter. That's a
Right.
30 seconds on a filter. And then, the body inadequacy. And we could go down a whole nother podcast with that conversation. But, going back to the gratitude, I think it's really interesting, because I do think there's some nature versus nurture.
Yep.
So I inherently am a glass is half full person. Like, I wake up every day and I think the world is working for me, not
Yep.
against me.
Yep.
But if you look for the good in every day, good things you will
Yeah.
find. You know,
I mean, you reap what you sow. I mean, there is, you could give a million of them, but it's true.
yeah.
It is
But if you
absolutely
wake up and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get stuck in traffic today, and, like, I'm gonna honk at this person, and my jeans are still wet," and it's like you're, like, searching for bad things, like, you're gonna find bad, like, you will find what you search for.
yep.
But there are people, like, I think my sister is inherently a glass half empty person. Like,
Right.
she's just not naturally optimistic. Where
Right.
I'm like, everything in life will work out. Like, we'll find a way. And then we're going deep here. I always talk about, like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So there
Right.
is a level of, people say to me, like, oh, you get lucky a lot. I'm like, no, like, I put in the work, I put in the time, I plan for things, like, I am ready. If
Right. Right.
somebody, I mean, the best example I had was when I first graduated from college, I was working in medical device sales. And I was the lowest person you could be at the company. I had, I'd been there not even a year. So I was the most junior associate. But I was learning and I was studying, and I was like, one day, like, I want to have my own territory and I want to do all this stuff. And then there was this big change where almost the whole team in Southern California left and went to our direct competitor. And they said, who can move in 2 weeks and come down here and fill one of these territories? And I was like, I can, you know? So, but I had like put in the forward future of saying, like, one day I want to have my own territory. And while
Right.
it was way before I should have got it, and it was way of a bigger territory than what I would have ever received at that time in my career. Like, I would have had to work 5 or 7 years to get this opportunity, but I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. Like, I'll move tomorrow. So it's, is it lucky, or is it like being in the right place at the right time because you're always doing the right thing? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think gratitude is like, even if you're stuck in traffic, you can you can either let yourself go crazy about it, or you can accept it and find the joy in it. I mean, and it's choices. And it's also, like the books I surround myself with things that are reminding me about the life how I want to live my life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the podcasts I listen to, it's the books I read, it's the word art around my house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Surround yourself with it. So here's a question for you. What was your biggest takeaway from Zig Ziglar? You have to have like a one line from him.
um the one that actually always stuck with me was about personal responsibility. And he said
Hmm.
that when it was something about how he knew that when he had gained weight,
Mm.
um, that he knew it was his responsibility. It was on him because no one had made him eat food.
Yeah.
Um, but I just always took that it's about the personal responsibility, um, and just like how you look at the world is up to you. It's your perception. So
Yeah. And,
yeah,
and
I cried when he died. I mean, he was a pretty amazing guy. So if anyone is looking for someone to listen to, Zig Ziglar, it's pretty
okay,
amazing.
so this is gonna really date me. When I graduated from college and I had this first medical device job, it was a sales job, and the person who was my manager was about 20 years older than me. He gave me Zig Ziglar um they weren't cassettes, they were CDs, I
Yeah,
guess. CDs. I'm like, what is the word? CDs. And he's like,
yeah,
just listen, because we were in the car all the time driving from hospital to hospital. And he was like, just listen to these like in the car, it'll really change your perspective and like give you like sales tips. Like he's the best, whatever. So that's why I've heard of him. But yeah, I remember I had like this cassette thing looking where I
yeah.
could
The
listen
whole
to
booklet.
yeah, it's
Yes.
like a booklet. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's too funny. Okay, and then Melissa, our last takeaway is talking about how to really prepare to be a mother. Give us all your wisdom.
I think now, and again, because I talk to a lot of moms on social media. I've like sent them books, moms that are like depressed or struggling. I will send them books. I think the best way to prepare for motherhood is prepare your relationships and prepare your heart. And I grew up with a father that was married 3 times. He's been married for a long time now, but a lot of divorce in our family. And, obviously, even if you are a single parent or you're co-parenting, whatever that relationship is with that partner, making sure that that relationship is in a good place, that your mother, your mother-in-law, your father, your sisters, that your village is tight. That will help you more than any gender reveal party, any baby moon, any baby shower, is
Yeah.
just taking the time to look within you. Because I think so many times we wind up, and I mean, this is because it's what I saw in my own life, is that
Yeah.
you rinse and repeat how you were raised. And there's a lot of us that would do things differently. And if you had a perfect childhood, awesome, but a lot of people didn't. And I think taking that time to really look within you and prepare your heart for motherhood, because it cracks you open in the most beautiful way, in the most physical way, emotional way. Um, and I would just want moms to know that that is how beautiful it is, because I feel like, and maybe it's my feed, but I feel like there's like the business of mom falling apart, hanging over a basket of laundry with a glass of wine in her hand,
Yeah.
is not what I want the world to think of motherhood. I think it is the most powerful, incredible thing that can ever happen to a woman.
Yeah.
And it should be celebrated and for what it is, right? It is bringing a child into this world, and to not let all the noise around it take away from it, because time, I think, is the most precious gift, and to really think about how you use your time before you have that child, that first year after you have that child,
Yeah.
um, to say no if you don't want to do something.
Yeah, no, that, yes, the saying no, that was, I'm trying to think of the book I read that it was so, was it Girl Wash Your Face or was it the book before that? Um, but she had a whole chapter, Rachel Hollis.
Yeah,
This is like 4 or 5 years ago. She had a whole chapter on saying no, and it was the first time I had ever heard that concept. And
yeah,
for me, I had a newborn, a 3, 4, and 5-year-old.
yeah,
And I felt I was being asked to volunteer at school and I was being asked to bake cupcakes and like there were so many things and I was just like running myself ragged trying to do everything. And I was trying to do everything, but I was enjoying nothing.
right, right,
Right? And, I just think it's everything in life is seasons. Like I'm in a season now where my kids and where we live, we moved about 6 months ago. My kids can walk to school. It's a 5-minute walk. And so they walk in the morning. Even my 5-year-old will go, my kids grab him from his class, they walk home. Like things are easy for me right now. Gosh, knock on wood.
right,
I, and I do feel like I have the time to do some volunteering because I do have all 4 kids are in school full time. Like they are out of the house by 7:45. They don't come home till 3. So
yeah,
it frees. I mean, I also work full time, but
yeah,
I have those moments where I can slip out and do some volunteering or like I feel more not so crazy that I can't like help a friend in need or if a meal train comes to me, I'm like, yes,
right,
like I can do that with my girls because they like to bake and they like to cook now. So I just think it's also like season. So for
yeah,
the new mother who is listening to this and they feel like they're drowning, like we've been there, it will pass. And but going back to you mentioned I don't think you said it so specifically, but generational trauma, right? Or generational learnings.
yeah,
I always thought this was an odd concept because you would think if, and we'll go like worst case scenario now, you would think if your parents are alcoholics and they're beating you, right? Like that is something that would be so egregious and it would be so painful for you that you would never repeat that. But
right,
we repeat the environments that we're in.
yeah,
And going back to gratitude, like my mom worked 2 days a week from 7 to 2, but she was more or less a stay-at-home mom,
yeah,
and my mom's always been my best friend, she's always been my biggest supporter, she supported my sister, I have 3 brothers, like, just I grew up in I couldn't imagine having a better, like, childhood and upbringing, and, I feel like so much of who I am is because my mom and my dad, they were always like, "You can do it, there's no limits," like,
right,
world's your oyster. Like they just empowered me in a way that at the time I didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they didn't even know what they were doing, but they are just like, you can do or be anything you want in life. So as a female, I went into, I mean, I keep referencing this job, which I don't think I've talked about a ton on the podcast, but I started this first job in medical device sales and I was the only female on my team.
right,
And in the state of California, there were only 2 women out of, however many people. It just wasn't it was in sports medicine, it was just mostly men. I mean, that's, like, what it was. And I remember somebody was like, "Does it feel" and then all the surgeons are mostly men. And
right,
they were like, "Does it feel so weird to, like, always be, like, the people you're calling on are men and the people in your company are men?" And I was like, "No." Like, like, it never even occurred to me that I was a less than because I was like, "No, I'm just equal to everybody else." I mean, I was younger than a lot of people, that was apparent to me, but, like, the gender piece, like, it never resonated with me, and I think that, there's other people that maybe the parents treat the boys and girls different, those type things, and I didn't have that, and so for me, it would be really hard to think that, this generational trauma or abuse or even situations, right, that aren't bad, like, the way your dad talks to your mom or the way your mom talks to your dad, whatever that is, you would think, "Gosh, that's not very nice," but then you become that because
right,
it's the only thing you know,
yeah.
which is
I always
really
remember
scary to think.
there was a on Oprah. Um, it was women. If you didn't have a parent that was there for you, you will find men that leave, because that's what love look feels like to you. Like
Say that
the
one more time.
is that if you have a parent that wasn't there for you,
Yeah.
the two people that should love you more than anything in the world. If
Yeah.
one of them is not there for you,
Mm.
you will seek out a partner that leaves, because leaving is what love feels like for you. And
Mm.
my older sister has had that a lot, because I think she was affected more, even though we grew up with my dad, she reached out to my mom a lot more than I did. And I think she felt that door shutting more than I ever did. And
Mm.
she has, and I don't think she'll ever listen to this podcast, but she'll, she's the one that has always, she consistently picks men that leave,
Mm.
because at the end of the day, that's what love feels like to her.
Mm.
And it is like taking the time when we're younger to heal, and I'm a big fan of therapy, if we can afford it, or reading the books if you can't, to really understand what happens to us when parents don't show up. Which is why I think motherhood is such this incredible gift and responsibility.
Yeah.
Um, because if you don't show up, it affects children. I mean, it matters. It really matters.
Yeah.
If you grew up with if your parents are an alcoholic, and I will never be an alcoholic, I would never do that. I think the stats show, there's a lot of repeat alcoholism, because it's what you go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I think as you're speaking, when you're saying show up, you mean like literally just be there. Don't be an alcoholic. Like this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When we say show up, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the perfect Pinterest birthday party. You have to have
Yeah.
the lunch made every day. You have to have the bedtime routine every night that you stick to in the book. Like that, just
Yeah.
being there. And that's where you're saying like, you're enough. Like I think 90% of people listening to this, 95, 98, whatever number you want to give it, most people, the fact that you're even listening to a podcast about
Right.
motherhood means you're a really amazing mom, right?
I say to my boys all the time, so I keep a decent home, but it is certainly not my main,
Yeah.
uh, is that on my deathbed, they'll never turn and be like, gosh, mom, you kept great laundry, or gosh, mom,
Yeah.
you've made sure that this or that. But I know that they will know that they were the most important things in my lives, because I played cards with them. I physically was at every game,
Yeah.
and I looked them in the eye. I put my phone down.
Yeah.
I was intent in my time with them.
Yeah.
And that to me is what showing up is. It is not all the external. It is that your heart showing up for them, being there for them physically and emotionally, like listening. I mean, gosh knows how much what phones have done. I mean, we've all been at the restaurants. I mean, I walked by the other day and I actually looked at the dad. He had a beautiful 11-year-old girl across the seat from him at a restaurant, and he was on his phone. And it's like, I
We need
mean,
the examples for that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Melissa, I could talk to you all day about this stuff. You are just such a wealth of knowledge. And I love that. And again, I don't want to say that you're on the other side, because all your boys are not in college yet, but you're crossing that in the spectrum of motherhood. You're at the other end, which
oh,
like gives
yeah,
me
yeah.
goosebumps to even say. I mean, mothering and motherhood and all that is never done ever. I mean, I still call my mom on the daily, help me with this. And I'm almost 40, but I love your perspective, and it's just really beautiful, the company that you've built and the way you infuse like your personal experiences and the gratitude, and just like the love of being a mother into the company. So can you tell everybody where they can find you? And you have a discount code as well, so make sure to mention that.
Yep. So, tinytags.com is our website. Our Instagram and TikTok is at tinytags. The code will be MM20, and it'll be 20% off. And we also, when will this air? When will this go?
In let's see, probably like March 15th. Right around.
Okay. And I can tease that we launched in Target last year.
Oh,
And
amazing.
maybe we might be coming back to Target.
Okay, okay. I love that. Congratulations. That's huge, Melissa. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tara. I really appreciate it.